The PS5 secret advantage was just discovered. Did the PS5 Pro just leak? And there's some rumors about one of PlayStation's biggest IPs coming back. By the time you're seeing this, it's been a couple days since the big PS5 showcase, but at the time of filming, it just wrapped up like 2 minutes ago. We had everything set up and ready to go in case something big was announced, and boy, did Sony not disappoint with the game announcements. So I figured it'd be fun to pick out some of my favorite highlights from the entire showcase, and we gotta start with the big opening reveal, which is of course the Knights of the Old Republic remake that has been rumored for a long time thanks to one of my good friends, Mr. Matty Plays. Knights of the Old Republic is my second favorite Star Wars game ever, and I think it's one of the first ones I actually owned because Santa Claus brought it to me the year it came out for the original Xbox, and the disc didn't work, so my mom had to be like, oh, Santa Claus gave me the receipt and we're gonna take it back to Target and exchange it, and then everything worked out fine. This game is awesome. It's like a full-on BioWare RPG that takes place in the Star Wars universe. I always thought it was so cool that it takes place so much earlier than everything you see in the movies, that they could kind of do whatever they wanted. And it's one of those cool examples of a game inventing a character that ends up being one of the best characters in that entire franchise. I'm of course talking about Revan, who was shown in the trailer. Now I know there's a ton of you out there who have not played Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I'm not going to spoil who Revan is. You just got to know that he's one of the best characters in Star Wars, and it is awesome that A, he's coming back, and B, he's officially canon. I know he was mentioned in a couple books a couple of years ago that are canon, but seeing him on screen, that's what makes it real. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a game that I'm honestly going back and forth on. The idea of a Dungeons and Dragons themed Borderlands game actually sounds really cool, especially when you see that it has melee combat and magical powers and stuff, but I gotta be real with you guys, Tiny Tina is an extremely annoying character to me, and I'm just not here for that, but I'll give it a shot when it comes out. It seems like a smaller experience than Borderlands 3, kind of like maybe a glorified standalone expansion or something like that. I have a feeling that it's going to be more linear instead of open world. Forspoken is another one where I really want to like it, but some of the writing and just the facial animations in the trailer stood out to me as kind of weak. Hopefully they can figure that out by the time it comes out next year, because this looks like a Final Fantasy game that takes place with a character from the modern day, and I liked the setup there, and the gameplay looked fast and frantic. It had great, cool animations and stuff like that. The open world looked sweet. The graphics on everything except the face looked pretty good, so there's not a lot to complain about other than just like the voice acting, and I feel like that's something that can kind of clean up by the time the game comes out. Also, the cat in this trailer was very realistic looking. It was kind of spooky for a second, but then I was like, oh, that's a pretty cute cat. I like that it looks real. The next one I thought was cool was Rainbow Six Extraction. Now this one has a weird story to it because they did this event for Rainbow Six Siege a long time ago where you fought against aliens and it was like a PvE mode, and then it was way better than anyone expected it to be. Now I don't know if it's really good enough to support an entire game, but I thought it was worth bringing up because there's definitely a resurgence going on in these Left 4 Dead style games. We've got this new update coming to World War Z that adds a first person mode. We of course have Back 4 Blood. We've got Aliens Fireteam Elite. Like, this is a new genre again, and I think that's pretty cool, so I feel like it's worth highlighting. The funny thing though is that they had to change the name because the old name was Rainbow Six Quarantine. The next game that stood out to me was the Guardians of the Galaxy game from Eidos Montreal, which they've been working on since Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and I'm honestly very excited for this against my better judgment. There's just something off about both trailers we've gotten for this Guardians of the Galaxy game. Like, some of the jokes don't land and the gameplay doesn't look like it's running super smooth, but this game's coming out this October, so hopefully it's just like a trailer showing off a good game in a bad way. I don't know, I feel like the voice acting's great. I like the character designs. The idea of playing as Peter Quill leading the Guardians of the Galaxy to take down a space cult is like right up my alley, and they're licensing music for it, and Square Enix did do a good job on the gameplay side with Avengers at least, and Eidos works closely with Crystal Dynamics, so I feel like this has potential to be very good, and I really hope it's really good because Guardians of the Galaxy is like my favorite MCU property, so yeah, if it's bad, I'm gonna be bummed. There's just something weird about these trailers, but it's cool that they were showing it off at a PlayStation event. Now, one of the big rumors surrounding this event was that we were going to see the entire Uncharted collection get a PC port, and they were kind of true, but we kind of got what I said I didn't want to happen, which is Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy coming to PC. I just kind of think it's a weird choice on Sony's part to port the 4th and the 4.5th game in a franchise to the PC, but hopefully enough people who play on PC had PS4s and could have experienced Uncharted 1 through 3. I mean, there's some of Sony's biggest games ever, so I wouldn't be too surprised, and maybe they did some like data collection and said, oh, the vast majority of people who are playing on PC owned a PS4 at some point and probably played through the Uncharted collection already. Now, there was no release date on this PS5 and PC port of Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy, but I gotta assume it's gonna be coming soon, right? Usually with these PC ports, like with Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone, they were announced like 4 to 6 months before they came out. So at the very least, we'll be waiting until like March of next year to play Uncharted on PC, and you know I will be there playing it. Seeing Herman Hulst on stage looking so good at that PlayStation Showcase got me thinking about how like 190% of you aren't subscribed to this channel. So you're gonna wanna go ahead and make sure you subscribe and set your notifications to all. Now we're getting into the good stuff, and before we talk about the games, I gotta say that, man, Sony made a good decision buying Insomniac Games. They have delivered basically every high-profile PlayStation 5 exclusive since this console launch. We got Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is still my favorite game I played on the PS5. We've got Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which I think is pretty good. And now we're getting a Wolverine game from Insomniac, and holy does it look cool. It looks gory, it looks violent, it looks like we're playing as an older Wolverine, which kind of means we might be looping in the Old Man Logan storyline in some way. I am so excited. They totally earned the right to make this game by making Spider-Man so good. And while yeah, it sucks that this is going to be a PS5 exclusive for Xbox players, you gotta look at stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy or Avengers compared to stuff like Spider-Man, right? There's a very clear line of demarcation in terms of quality when you look at what's multi-platform and what's exclusive so far. So yeah, I don't know. If you want to play Wolverine, you might just want to go out and buy a PS4 or PS5. Unless this is PS5 exclusive, in which case you're going to want to go buy a PS5. Also, we know that Xbox is making an Indiana Jones game, and that's probably going to be exclusive. So I feel like they get that, and then we get this awesome Wolverine game. And on top of that, we get Spider-Man 2. It looks like we're getting a co-op game because they showed both Miles and Peter in the trailer beating up some bad guys. And then at the very end, they teased that the villain is going to be Venom, which, oh my God, I'm so excited, because even better than that is the fact that Tony Todd, Candyman himself, is voicing Venom. He is the perfect voice for that character. He's got this deep, booming voice that's going to separate him from the movie Venom and kind of make him stand on his own, just like the Peter Parker does in the Spider-Man PS4 game. They didn't reveal any gameplay, obviously, and honestly, it just looks like more Spider-Man, which again, I'm totally fine with. But the coolest thing is, this was one of the only games in this whole showcase that had a release date on it, and we're gonna be playing this game in 2023. I cannot wait. I hope it's a Halloween game again, but if it's not, I'll forgive them, because we got Venom played by Tony Todd. You guys don't know how important that is, because I'm sure you're way too young and don't even know what Candyman is. Not the one that just came out, the original one, but yeah, trust me, Tony Todd's gonna be a great voice actor for Venom. And on top of that, seeing Spider-Man 2 revealed at this PlayStation Showcase got me thinking about our awesome merch. We've got this sick Spider-Man PS4 design that we definitely didn't license from Sony. Please don't tell them. We also have it on stickers and canvas prints, so go check that out on the shelf down below this video, unless you have premium, in which case it's linked in the description. And then they wrapped up the show with the good stuff by giving us gameplay from God of War Ragnarok, and yeah, it just looks like a direct continuation of God of War. We got teased with Tyr, the Nordic God of War, which is going to be cool to see Kratos talking to another mythology's God of War. There's going to be a town where there's actual regular people running around, which we haven't really seen Kratos interact with people. We've seen him like butcher them and cut them in half and throw them through walls and stuff like that, but we've never seen him go up to a guy and be like, "Hello, sir, I'd like to buy an apple from you, and also a Whopper." But yeah, on the gameplay side, it looks like an expanded God of War. I saw him fight some big monsters, like a big wolf looking thing that chomped him in the middle. That looked really cool. We saw him beating up those same main enemies, which I'm pretty sure are called frost giants from the main game, or Draugrs or something like that. It doesn't really matter what they are. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry I didn't remember it, guys. Don't lambast me in the comments. Atreus really grew up, and I'm really excited that they're going with this whole Loki storyline. After we saw the show Loki, I'm just like into that character, so I want to see where that goes in this game. I don't know. I'm really excited for this game. The weird thing was they didn't put a release date on it, not even a 2022, which kind of scares me, because this game was originally announced for 2021 and then delayed into 2022. But the fact that they're not giving us any type of date after delaying it into 2022 means that maybe we could be seeing this in 2023. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to wait that long for this game, but at least we'll have Horizon in the meantime. So GTA 5 was shown off finally in full gameplay form, where we saw GTA Online that thankfully showed off how bizarre that game can be, with like a plane flying into a flying car and exploding. That's GTA Online in a nutshell. But it also showed us the story, which showed off a really cool feature, which is that when you switch between Franklin, Trevor, and Michael, you're going to be able to do it instantly, obviously thanks to the PS5's SSD. They also said it's going to take advantage of other features and have better graphics like ray tracing, all the stuff we've already known for a while. But the interesting thing is that it looks like GTA 5 was pushed into 2022. The original release date we got was November 11th, 2021, which is right around the corner, but this trailer revealed that it's now coming in March 2022. And I just gotta guess what's going on with this game. What happened when porting GTA 5 from the PS4 to the PS5 that made them have to delay it 4 months? That's kind of a big delay. We've got enough stuff to play this November between Battlefield, Back 4 Blood, and a ton of other games like hopefully Guardians of the Galaxy if that's good. So I'm fine waiting a little bit longer to play GTA 5 on my PS5. So we all know at this point that Jim Ryan, the current CEO of Sony, isn't the most popular dude, mainly because of some weird comments he made about backwards compatibility and the fact that he let the PS5 ship without being able to play PS3, PS2, or PS1 games. And on top of that, the guy who came in before him to be CEO of PlayStation, Shawn Layden, was really well liked because he gave Sony one of the best generations they've ever had, with some of the best exclusives they've ever had, like on the PS4. The weird thing about Shawn Layden though is that when he left PlayStation, he did it kind of abruptly, and no one ever really knew why, other than some comments he made about games getting too expensive and going for length over overall quality. His whole philosophy was, you can spend less money on an amazing game that's 25 hours and it'll overall be a better game than a way more expensive game that's 50 hours for no reason. And I honestly kind of agree with him. And he said, yeah, the reason I left PlayStation is because this is a young man's game and I just kind of wanted to put a feather in my hat at the highest point in my career. And honestly, I respect him for that. I don't think you can really argue that he brought Sony back to life after the PS3 generation. I know that the PS3 ended up outselling the Xbox 360 at the end, but the way that the PS4 launched and had all of these amazing exclusives like Bloodborne, Uncharted 4, Spider-Man PS4, the list goes on and on of the games that were released under this dude, and his games that he produced are still coming out. They're kind of wrapping up now, so we're gonna get into the era of Jim Ryan, especially since Herman Hulst is running all the studios. But yeah, there's no denying how awesome Shawn Layden's career was over at PlayStation. I really hope Jim Ryan kind of looks to the past a little bit now that he's kind of made his big splash as the new CEO of PlayStation. He's got the PS5 out there and it's literally going to be the best-selling console of all time. So now I feel like he doesn't really have to impress people anymore, and he should look at what the fans want, which is kind of shorter, better games that aren't 50 hours for no reason. Or if they're 50 hours, they really justify it with good content, like Ghost of Tsushima. That is a game that's 50 hours long, but everything you do in it feels like it's helping out your character be better at the game. Like if you go find a fox den, it helps you get more charm slots, stuff like that. I don't think I'm gonna piss anyone off if I say that Sucker Punch has become one of Sony's most valuable studios after the release of Ghost of Tsushima. It's gotten an expansion, a native PS5 release, a full-on multiplayer mode with a raid, and it's getting a theatrical film in the next couple of years, which I honestly think will be pretty cool because the story in this game is dope. Which, when you take that all into account, is kind of funny because leading up to this game, it seemed like Sony didn't really have any faith in it. I remember the day it came out when it was getting all these awesome reviews. I went to the store to get a boxed copy on disc and I just couldn't find it. It was impossible to get on disc for the first 2 weeks that it was out, and people were really noticing. They were like, I want to play this game that's getting awesome reviews, but I don't have space on my PS4 Pro. Man, this sucks. But then eventually Sony worked it out and everything was golden from there. This game really blew up last year. But before all that, Sucker Punch had a franchise on the PS3 called Infamous that I feel like is kind of overlooked at this point, but really shouldn't be because it's one of the best IPs Sony's ever had. So in the first game, you play as a guy named Cole McGrath who's a bike courier, and he's transporting this package which turns out to be a bomb that gives the entire city of totally not New York superpowers, and he ended up getting electricity superpowers. But the coolest thing about this game was that it was good or evil depending on what choices you made throughout the game. So you had two actually different stories based on who you decided to kill. Like if a civilian was knocked on the ground, you could help them up and you might not get health out of them, or you could use your electric powers to suck the life out of them and give you health. But you always had this little bar that showed you how good or bad Cole was, and the color of his shirt changed throughout the game. Like it was a very forward-thinking type of experience. But it really kind of peaked with Infamous 2, where it moved the series to New Orleans, or their version of it, and they introduced a bunch of new powers. The game ran a lot better. It looked a lot better. It had a much better story. It took even better advantage of this whole choice system of making Cole good or evil. And then we all know that one of the big launch-ish games for the PS4 was Infamous Second Son, where they switched characters, and I'm gonna be real, the story kind of took a little bit of a dip after Infamous 2's sort of like high crescendo, but it was still a really good story, and the gameplay and the map were even better than what we saw in the 2 previous games. Then they released this expansion called First Light. It lets you play as Fetch with her neon powers, and overall, just man, I really like this series. I felt like it deserved to go on longer, and it looks like we're gonna get something new from it because Sucker Punch updated the domain for infamousthegame.com, and it's showing that it's a PS5 game, which is dope. Now, before you get too excited for a brand new Infamous game, I think what Sony's probably doing here is remastering the first 2 games and maybe even Infamous Second Son and First Light, because Sucker Punch is very busy right now, definitely working on Ghost of Tsushima 2, so taking a break to detour to make a new Infamous game while they've got this other huge franchise going on doesn't necessarily seem like the smartest move. But if they got a smaller team internally remastering their old games to bring them to the PS5, I think that is a very smart move. Back in the PS3 generation, Sony did this a lot where they took their biggest games from the PS2 generation and kind of packed them together on one disc with some light visual upgrades and just making them run better overall in the PS3. And I actually liked that a lot because they were always cheaper than $60. And they were games that I didn't really play because I was more of an Xbox kid back in the day. So now that we have the PS5 here and the only backwards compatibility it has goes back to the PS4, I feel like Sony should revive that program and start remastering games from the PS3 and putting them in collection discs like with Infamous. Obviously, Xbox has full backwards compatibility going all the way back to the original Xbox, and when you play stuff like Halo 3, you get it running in 4K, but still, I feel like Sony's got better games overall that they could port forward to the PS5, so I'm just gonna cross my fingers that this Infamous trilogy turns out to be real. This is no surprise, but one of the biggest advantages you get with the next generation of consoles is the lightning fast SSD. I remember when this was announced and I kind of thought it was just a marketing term where they were like, yeah, it's gonna eliminate loading and make your game smaller, but then the console came out and yeah, it did eliminate loading times and it did make my games overall much smaller, which was a much needed thing for stuff like Warzone when it was like taking up half my hard drive. And thanks to a Reddit thread which posted an article from Tom's Hardware, we now know why the PS5 is so good at making games smaller and loading games quicker. And it might honestly be a feature that's exclusive to Sony. So Sony paid a company called Marvel, like not the comic company, it's a company called Marvel with 2 L's at the end, to make the SSD controller for the PS5. And they came up with an algorithm called Kraken, which Sony is using to make these games 60% smaller. And nothing's for sure just yet, but it looks like Sony was the one who paid for this Kraken algorithm to be developed because it was made over at Epic Games, and Sony just put a ton of money into Epic Games, and we didn't really know why, but this would make sense. Now, like I already mentioned, it's not clear whether or not Sony owns this technology, but when we see cross-generation games that are on the Xbox Series X and the PS5, they tend to load quicker and be a little bit smaller on the PS5. So this kind of directly explains why, and that's really cool. But again, I want to reiterate, I'm not a huge hardware guy. I don't know how all the systems work. I'm kind of just summarizing a very detailed article for you, so before you get mad about a very minor thing I got wrong, you might just want to go check it out. We'll link it in the description, and I actually think it's worth a read. The PS5 is approaching the end of its first year of life, and people are already looking forward to the PS5 Pro. And there's a new rumor out from a YouTuber named Moore's Law is Dead, where he talks about what he's heard about this potential PS5 Pro, which he says is coming out between 2023 and 2024. So the first thing he mentions is that it could cost anywhere from $600 to $700. It's going to target true 4K gaming for pretty much every game on it, and it's going to have light upscaling to 8K, which is absolutely insane to me. Now, as soon as this was announced, everyone kind of came out and said, there's no way this is true. There's no way Sony's already working on something like this. And well, I kind of agree that they're not going to go for 8K on the PS5 Pro because I just feel like that we're not really there yet. You got to be crazy to think that they are not already working on the PS5 Pro. What people really got to consider is when a console releases is not the time that a company starts working on the next console. They're actually starting work on the next console well before they even come out, because once they go to manufacture, the design on that console is done. It's not like they're just sitting there saying, all right, we're going to put the PS5 Pro into production at November 2020 because then we can focus on the future. No, I actually learned this back when I was editing for Austin Evans and we were working on a reveal of the Series X. We went to Microsoft and they said, yeah, it's kind of hard start going back and talking about this console because we've already moved on to the next thing. And I was like, whoa, a big singularity moment for me. It is really funny though that I'm seeing the same arguments popping up with this rumored PS5 Pro that I saw when the PS4 Pro was rumored back in the day. Everyone was saying, well, the PS4 is already selling as fast as it possibly can. Sony can't even keep up with the demand of these bad boys, so why would they already have a PS4 Pro in production? And the answer to that is you want to sustain that hype. You know, the longer that time goes on, people are going to get less and less enthused with their PS5, especially as more people get them. So if Sony can kind of keep that marketing cycle going by announcing a PS5 Pro at the right time, right when people start getting a little bit bored with the current PS5, like just a little bit of tinge of boredness, that's just going to be great for them. And I guarantee you people are going to be just as excited to go out and spend money on a PS5 Pro as they were for the PS5 originally. I kind of get where he's coming from though, because it's an easy thing to predict, because if you look at the PS4 and PS4 Pro, the PS4 launched at $300 and the PS4 Pro was $100 more at $400. Like, it just kind of makes sense. $600 though just seems like such an insane number for the PS5. And we know that Sony is happy to take a loss on a PS5. They're doing it with the digital one every day. And even with that reduced heatsink, it's going to be hard for them to make a profit. So I can see them doing the same thing with the PS5 Pro, maybe dropping the price of the disc PS4 to $400 and then having this PS5 Pro be $500. That would be awesome. And now that I say it, I could kind of see it being $600. So I don't really know. I still think it's kind of early to talk about this stuff, but the only reason I feel safe bringing it up is that I like Moore's Law is Dead. I've actually been watching his videos ever since I heard him on the Sacred Symbols Plus podcast. So yeah, I don't know. We are going to see a PS5 Pro in the future. I'm very confident of that. 2024 seems like a reasonable time for that to happen to me. The price does seem a little out of whack, but then when I explain it, I'm like, you know, it might be $600. We're just going to have to wait and see how it goes. But yeah, I wouldn't not buy a PS5 now with the hope of the PS5 Pro, unless it's like you're fine playing a kind of inferior console when that one comes out. We know Sony's going to keep supporting the PS5, so I don't really think it matters all that much.